Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Photo Mishmash, this one being broadcast live March 25th, 2020. And I am back with two good friends, David Carr, Steve Scurich. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good to be back after a little break.
Yeah, we were out traveling, actually, just before the stuff started to get really crazy. So we could talk a little bit about that. But David Carr, you're in the Atlanta area. You're a professional photographer, former musician, although you are still a musician, right?
I think, well, there's always been a joke that who is it that who hangs out with musicians? Drummers. Like, we're not considered musicians. I don't know why, but yeah, I think once a musician, always a musician. So
okay, nice.
That's a cruel thing.
Pretty cruel, yeah. Drummers, we got the brunt of a lot of bad.
So are you like the dentist of doctors then? Like,
yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think
over.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, how do you tell if the drum riser's level? Drool's coming out of both sides of the drummer's mouth, things like that.
Jeez. I mean, aren't you guys responsible for literally keeping the beat and all of the band members together?
Oh yeah, if guitar player screws up, everybody's like, they don't really notice. Drummer screws up, people are like, ha ha, you suck.
Gotcha.
Okay, wait. I'll brag on David Carr. I do this all the time. The dude's got 4 Grammys and American Music Awards, so you can give him a hard time all you want.
So he's capable of playing the drums and drooling out of both sides of his mouth very well?
Yeah.
I can do all that, yeah.
Although last time I was at your house, Dave, I think I spilled a bunch of bacon grease on your Grammys. So
it's all right. And I'm looking at them. I still haven't cleaned them, so.
Saving that for, I'll never wash these things.
Yeah. And just in case you think Steve's joking, David Carr does actually have 4 Grammys. That's pretty fantastic. But you have pivoted your life. There's no really kind of Grammy equivalent in the photography realm,
Yeah, I don't think there is.
But Steve Scurich, you're working towards that. If I could just kind of play off that, you are a photographer, mostly real estate in the Cincinnati area now.
Yeah.
And so glad to have you joining us as well. For anybody who's tuning in for the first time, because you're probably working from home, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but this is kind of going to be mostly a not dwell on the current news show, that you can actually work from home and watch this live. So if you're watching live, thank you. Welcome to you all as well. The chat room, you're with us. This computer keeps crashing, so this is my chat. And if it crashes, then you guys just have to let me know when people are being mean to me.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're also streaming live to Facebook for the first time, and that is the Facebook group, the Photo Enthusiast Network, that I founded along with Steve, along with David and Allie McKay, and just as a fantastic resource of educational material. And Dave and Allie and I will be back tomorrow for Pen members, and also that'll be available free after the live show, talking about things to keep yourself busy photography-wise during these kind of, maybe working from home times, or maybe you find yourself with just a little bit more time on your hands. So,
all right.
And speaking of that, I'll address this up front. I put a call out in the newsletter yesterday, the public newsletter, that said, hey, we want your photos. We want to review and critique and do a little Lightroom editing on your photos. Send those in. I've done that in the past. Typically, it's reserved for Pen members, and we have anywhere from 5 to a dozen or so images that come in each week for us to review. And typically in the past, when I've sent it out to the public and said, hey, special this week, we'll do it for anybody. Don't have to just be a Pen member. Then I get a couple of more. Well, it's clear that a lot of you have found more time on your hands, because I was sent about 80 photos last night.
It was wow.
80 photos.
Never seen that.
So we're not going to be able to do all of those. We talked about it, and I will be back and talking about all of those photos in a separate video, but we just picked out a couple of them to talk about now. And also Pen members, I decided not to do any of your photos in this video. I want to give you a dedicated video that will be out in the next day or so. So a couple of you asked and said, hey, I sent in photos last week or the week before. Pen members, are you going to get to those? And I was like, oh yeah, we'll get to those. I lied. I'm sorry. I apologize. I will get to those, but it won't be during this show. But we do have some fantastic images, kind of a nice mix. I love seeing names that I've seen around as either subscribers or followers for years and years and years have found some time to submit some images. So we will get to those and talk to them a little bit more about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And I'm doing a lot of the talking up front. I'll let these guys talk in just a minute. But one of the things I love about having both Steve and Dave on is they have smart things to say. David Carr, you had a fantastic post the other day. I said I don't want to dwell too much on the current news, but I do want to take a moment and thank, as you did, all of the healthcare workers out there right now. I can't imagine how hard that job is and how hard they know for some areas that it's going to be in the coming weeks. So I just want to say, if you're watching this, if you're not collapsed and fast asleep in between shifts or something, thank you so much. Really, truly appreciate what you're doing. And I wish you guys safety and health and anything that you need, I hope is available to you.
Yeah, I just can't, I don't think any of us who haven't been in that situation can even imagine what it's like to I just imagine, because I watched an interview the other day with a lady who she set up a temporary coronavirus clinic basically right here in Atlanta, right outside one of the hospitals, because they didn't have enough room in the hospital for all the patients that are coming in. So she created this, kind of made this like makeshift clinic. And, but she was talking about the grueling hours, just all day, every day, wearing this mask all day long. And every time they go from one patient to the next, having to take this thing off and then put this one on, and then just constant. And I was just like that. I mean, to have it in your heart to continue to care about the people. I mean, I think it would start to really test that, even though that's what you do. And so I just imagine like you would have to get somewhat delirious as a physician, as a doctor. So I just try to put myself in their shoes, and I was like, gosh, thank you all for what you do. I mean, it's incredible. And we always need you, but especially now.
Yeah. Already a difficult job, and then on top of that, to be faced with the sheer numbers and possible incredible sickness yourself. So thank you again. And not even in the same category, but people all over hurting just because of the incredible number of people just shut down, and especially photographers and just, if you're watching this and you're a freelance photographer, our hearts go out to you as well. All of us are affected as well. And it's tough, but we are going to get through this, and it'll be okay. I do believe that. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. I don't know where to go from there. That's kind of a dark beginning, but thank you. And thanks for sticking with us. This show is brought to you by Squarespace. And speaking of, I often put show notes are linked right down below, along with, you can follow Steve on Facebook and Instagram, and David Carr on Instagram. And David Carr, you have a photography podcast as well. All of those are linked right down below. David, have you put out a new, I know you've been traveling a bit before things got crazy. Have you put out a new podcast?
I have not. I actually started recording one a couple of weeks ago, and I have to do about 20 takes before I'm happy with one. So I got to 19 takes and quit. So
yeah,
I'll record another one very soon, though, I promise.
Okay. Good. Those are great. If you are looking to fill your time with more photography knowledge and thoughts, the last couple that I listened to, just nice, good sit down with people in different photography areas, touching on business, touching on kind of balancing business and personal life, and filled with just lots of little tips and tricks and things like that as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, those links are down below, along with any of the news articles that we're going to talk about as well. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Somebody called me an influencer a couple of weeks ago. So, I've actually entered that realm now. So you can follow me.
You're like, sorry, I didn't mean to influence anybody. Sorry.
It's profound posts that I'm putting up on Instagram these days.
Yes, profound. And then, Steve, I think that's a good time to bring up this picture. What is this, Steve? Is this you on quarantine? What's going on here?
Well, I was really having a hard time in quarantine. I was really lost, and I just all of a sudden I found some purpose, and I turned a corner, had a breakthrough. I took a picture, sent it to Toby, said, life is good now. I've got purpose and I've got something to do. So this ball here, I call him Wilson. His name was actually on it. And so yeah, we're having a good time hanging out in quarantine these days.
That's good. My mother always used to say that life is like a volleyball. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm mixing up Tom Hanks movies. Sorry.
That's good. I will say that the collective humor of our nation and the world has been pretty great. I love this one I saw today. After years of wanting to thoroughly clean my house but lacking the time, this week I discovered that wasn't the reason.
Yeah, I saw that one. There are really good ones floating around out there, and I think that's really important, not to make light of what's going on by any means, but remember that, we have laughter, we have some comedy, we have time with family. I mean, get goofy with your family if you have a chance, or you have people kind of around the house and stuff. We're trying to make the best out of a really crappy situation here. And I really appreciate this kind of stuff that's going around. I'm hoping that people, keep their getting offendedness to a minimum, which is a lot to ask in these times. But, remember to laugh too.
Yes.
Laughter
is the best medicine, they say.
Laughter is the best medicine. And just for any of you photo nerds out there, I don't actually have a volleyball that I painted with Wilson on it. Photoshop.
Oh yeah, I had me there.
I wasn't sure either. So nice job with the Photoshop. I thought that maybe your hand looked a little funny, and then I was like, well, this brings up a whole other host of questions. Like, how committed to this was he? Whose blood is that?
I would say though, you might want to flip it.
It would probably play it much stronger that way, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because we tend to play volleyball from left to right.
But then, my part just ain't gonna look right if I flip that photo.
Okay, that's true. All right.
Your part. You're letting yourself go. There's really just, the biggest issue in this is just your face. You just gotta do something about that face.
So this was I took this morning, and it was hilarious because I knew I was gonna shave for the show and comb my hair and stuff. And I think I'm probably on day 2 without a shower here. And I'm taking this selfie, and then I call my wife over when she gets off the phone. Of course, she's working from home. I'm like, honey, you got to take a picture of me like I'm holding a newborn baby, and I'm so proud and smiling. And she's like, what are you doing? And so, yeah, it's created some laughter around the house.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What are we supposed to do next? Kind of be week in review, but there hasn't been anything. As I was telling these guys before, honestly, aside from the travel, the YouTube stuff, I could be pumping out videos, but my productivity level over the last week has been pretty low. And I'm, for the most part, okay with that. I don't know about you guys. I actually haven't put anything on Instagram since before I left on the Southwest workshop.
I know.
Yeah.
Because I follow, I've said this before on this show, but I follow your stories and David Carr's too. Like when I pull up Instagram, it's usually Toby and David have story editions for me to look at.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that yours has been really light. I myself, it's weird because now I have all this time. Not a lot of homes being shot right now. It's the off season anyway. But I have a little bit of a writer's block, if you'd call it that. Yeah,
well, it's an interesting time because I think we normally, if we have some time off, we feel like we're supposed to be super productive all the time. We got to keep working. But right now it kind of just feels like, well, I mean, why shouldn't we just enjoy being home with the ones we love and just actually give ourselves a break to do that? I mean, it's a very rare thing. I hope we never get this kind of break again, but while we have it, I mean, I think it's good to take that pressure off of ourselves to feel like we have to constantly be producing things. Because I've been in that same rut. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pam Case just had a comment. I think our brains are on other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree 100%. I think for me, when I sit down and I really edit photos and stuff like that, or go out and shoot and get inspired, there's an inspiration to it, and there's an artistic sort of thing that I go into, and it's just kind of muted a little bit right now. It's you have all this time and stuff, but you go out there and there's not a lot of life going on there's people walking around and stuff, which is cool. So
yeah,
it's a total downer to say that, but I'm just trying to kind of be honest if anybody else is feeling that way. And that's what you were asking about, hey, are you guys good for Mishmash this Wednesday? I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this is awesome.
Something I can actually set a goal for. I read a great article this morning from somebody from the Harvard universe about like what we're all going through right now in the world is collective grief. And I never would have thought of it that way, but it's grief because life as we know it isn't the way it was, and it will never quite be the same. In the same way that after 9/11, things at the airports changed forever, and a lot of the ways that we do life changed. And so there's kind of this grieving what was, and there's a grieving in anticipation and anxiety about what's to come. Yeah. And we all know we're going to ultimately be okay collectively as a planet, but it's just, I was like, yeah, okay, that might be leading to some of that writer's block and some of that lack of like initiative, because we're all a little bit, if we're honest, kind of going, what's going on? This is crazy. This is unprecedented.
Yeah. Dr. Carr, that's that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And also, I think, you touched on this in saying that, but it is kind of the open-endedness of this I feel like if I said, okay, this next week I have off, but maybe it's going to be like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or longer before traveling again. And so there is that kind of unknown factor to it that I'm just looking for excuses for why I've just like been sitting in a chair playing a mobile game on my phone. Like mostly. That's mostly what.
Dude, I thought about digging out the old PlayStation. I think the one I have is a 3, PlayStation 3. It's in a box in the garage somewhere. Like, this is time to pull that thing out. I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, so I'm excited to do this show. I'm also excited that I've said it here, and I'll get out in the next day or two, the video of Penn folks and the video of the other images that submitted that we're not going to get to in a few moments. And I also have some other content coming along with sitting down with David and Allie. So I've got things that are going to be happening soon. But yeah, for now, okay. All right. So I've played like 1 million hours. It doesn't matter.
It's all right. No judgment. No judgment.
Yeah. And I'll get some more stuff on Instagram as well. And I see some in the comments. This is a great time for some of you to kind of catch up on Lightroom and work on Lightroom. And I started to mention this, but then I forgot. PPA has made all of their educational videos completely free right now, which is just absolutely fantastic. So there's a link to that right down in the show notes. Go to the show notes, click on that, and it'll take you to all the links we're talking about, including the free PPA. I have a ton of free Lightroom content online as well. And so this is a great time to kind of catch up on that. I'll be talking more about that in the video with David and Allie tomorrow as well. So those are all options.
Awesome.
So yeah. All right, let's dive into the Lightroom section of the show. Typically in this part, we have a small handful of images that we've selected out of the ones sent that we spend some time in Lightroom and Photoshop as well, giving you some tips and tricks for kind of improving them, editing them. And as I said, I put a call out for the public to submit and got way more than usual. So I had to pick a subset of those. If you don't see your image, you'll probably see it in the upcoming video as well. But let me just share screen and switch over to here. Okay. All right. So I've picked a couple of different images that I think we have some useful comments about. Some are simple fixes. Some might be a little bit more. But we're going to start with Daryl's kind of street scene, which it's so funny because immediately when I see this, I'm thinking of a different time. It's already, this scene is probably incredibly rare at the moment in most of our cities. So there's one thing that I did to this when I was looking at these kind of playing around that I think made it much, much better. You guys want to guess what that is?
Something to do with the upper right-hand corner.
Mm. I see. You know what? I hadn't seen that until you said that right there. Yeah. I actually
do it. In other words, the way we're looking at it right now, or
no, I haven't done it yet.
Daryl submitted it, right?
This is the way Daryl submitted it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what do you? So if I took that out, is that, or would you suggest staying up there and just?
Well, I like all the people, like the guy in the upper left hand side. Well, I guess it's not really upper left hand, but it's in that upper left third. The more shadows of people, I think, the cooler. But I just felt like there was a brighter distraction in that top right corner where the top of the building was.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'd take this to black and white.
That's what I did. Yeah. I think the golden color is interesting, but it's competing with some of the car lights and some of the other stuff that's just a little messy. And as soon as you go black and white, it feels so clean to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting though. I will say, when you first pulled it up, I was just looking through a guy's website today, a legendary street photographer named Jay Maisel. He's been around he's 90 something years old, and he is amazing. He had some shots that had that golden kind of look on the streets. And I remember seeing them and really liking them. So I guess when this popped up, I was like, oh, cool. That's kind of like what I saw today. So, but yeah, black and white, looks awesome. So, but the golden color didn't bother me too much, just because I was programmed already seeing it earlier today. So
It doesn't, I don't want to say it bothers me. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Submitted it was it's a very eye-pleasing color for sure. I think the crop, I don't know that I would even change the crop too much, although you start to get into some real dark areas on that right side now. So if you crop that out, then you've almost got keep I actually like all the dark stuff on the left. Bring it in from the right just slightly, so you almost have right down the middle this split between super dark and then the whole scene that's going on. You'd have to go into Photoshop and probably clip out a person or two so they're not being cut off by the edge of the frame. But and then also that would draw your attention to the so if you cut that fourth person out on the far right, you've got three, that odd number, which is just visually pleasing. You got three people that you're looking at. I would clip them out in Photoshop, because now you're in the
too much
the shadow of the other person. Plus, you want some breathing room on the side. But I like that a lot. I think it's a really catching photo.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Very much. Yeah, very much.
Nice. So. All right, nice, Daryl. All right, next up we've got Ash. From a black and white to a very Daryl's first was very colorful. This kind of feels the same, very monochromatic, but that color is red.
Funny, because especially coming off of a Daryl's photograph, I was thinking I'd like to see this one in black and white too. Actually, that red is distracting me from the emotion that's in her face and her eyes. I want to just focus on her face and eyes. Well, and see here now you're focused on your eye. Always goes to the brightest spot of the picture. So you got the sign, and then you got the brightness above her head. It still takes you away from her eyes. So I think black and white or not, you got to lighten that face up, probably darken the surroundings.
Little bit. It's a little too much glow there, I think. But so what I did was just threw a radial filter over top that is not inverted, so it's affecting the outside darkening. We can move it this way a little bit, darkening the sign just a bit. The thing I like this image a lot. The other thing I did while you're talking, if you saw it, I just cropped in just a bit because we have this little hidden light here in this dark stretch that I don't think does anything, and we still have enough of that breathing room. I love we have a reflection of her face over here too.
Yeah.
And it almost has, I feel like, a different look to her there than here. I'm not sure why, but I think that's great, and I think there's a lot to love about this image.
I think you get a little more extreme with it too, with the contrast and everything. I mean, just really kind of push this one, because there's so much feeling in her face. It's a beautiful image, but it just needs, some more pop. It looked very kind of hazy, and maybe bring the dehaze up a little bit. And yeah, There you go.
Yeah.
Really work with those contrasts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Original red, and then black and white. And it's almost always, I agree with you, Steve. As soon as I go black and white, I almost always increase that contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The red, you flipped it back. It still plays really nice as a red photograph. So if Ash, if you're watching this, if you want to stick with that, I think that's a great choice.
Yeah. I agree. You know,
down.
because what's great about this photo to me, well, there's a lot that's great about it. I mean, just the details, that tiara or whatever that thing is in her hair adds a nice touch. It's kind of interesting. You're like, why is she wearing that? The red, you know, just the glow of that light. What's she looking at in the window? There's a lot of emotion in this photo. So to me, yeah, it's like black and white, full color, whatever. There's so much going for it already. I really like this one. It's moody.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, moving on to Dawn's. You know, this is cool. This is really cool, Dawn. I love, you know, one of the things as I was going through, if you're watching this and you submit an image and you don't see it in this immediate group, as I said, I'll get to it. But one of the things that struck me about the ones that I picked is, for the most part, I'm immediately struck by the subject. You know, it is just right in your face. And if there's one tip you can walk away from this show with, or just that it's going to improve your photography, is to simplify as much as possible. Yeah. So I think there's even a little room for some simplification of this too. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Would you? I mean, well, I say that. I mean, I'm thinking about coming in a little tighter. What do you think?
I like it as so I would come up for sure above that initial whitewash, as beautiful as it is. Yeah. So I'd go there, and then I would come in from the left side to put that place more in the third. Yeah, right about there, maybe out just a little bit, Toby.
Yeah.
And then I would straighten it just slightly.
Yeah.
And then I would flip it around. But I have to say this: if this is a super famous place, which it very well could be, I've never seen it before, but it definitely looks like a place where some people might recognize where it is. You have to be careful about flipping. But as far as like a stronger composition, a stronger image, putting the subject in that upper right or lower right third. Now, I know that looks totally weird to people right off the bat, but that's because we've been looking at it the other way. And this just all plays left to right now. The waves are crashing and then they're hitting off to the right. It works both ways. But I personally think that I would flip it if I could get away with it. If people are going to recognize that it's flipped, then you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it could be fairly symmetrical, so maybe they wouldn't see. I don't know.
Yeah. Roy says this is one from his area, Michigan. So I don't recognize this. I love this little spot. I think it's pretty awesome. I agree. Either way can work. The only other thing I might brighten it being the lighthouse itself, the building, just a tiny bit more. These are JPEGs, so they're not responding so well to editing in Lightroom, but just a bit more. Otherwise, I think you have a lovely, lovely image in the contrast of the blue, bits of blue sky against this red. Very, very nice.
I mean, that is an incredible capture.
It really is. You know what's cool about this too is that, like, if it was just that lighthouse and the bridge going out to it, with a sunset or whatever, I mean, it would still be a beautiful image because it's a really cool structure. But what's awesome here is that you captured a moment it's not always happening, you know? And I talk a lot to my photography students at the school that I teach at, and to a lot of people, I talk about impact. You know, when a photo has impact immediately, like you look at it, you're not trying to nitpick it at first because you just already see that there's impact. Then it's just fine tuning it, which is what we're doing here, because that's just a cool shot.
Yeah.
Roy made a comment that it's very difficult to shoot from that other side, so people would notice.
Okay.
That being the case, then it needs to go back the way it was, because it's still a super strong image. It was taken. I think with the crop, you know, the reason that I wanted to crop out that foreground whitewash, as cool as it was kind of a visual barrier from what your eye really wants to focus on. The story is the wave hitting the pier, or the house at the end of the pier.
Yeah.
And you know, that wave being so light and everything, your eye just kind of gets trapped in that lower portion of the photo.
Yeah. Nice. All right, Steve, this next shot I picked specifically because, well, I want both of your opinions on it, but as you just proved with this image, you do like to often flip images to give you that nice left to right leading lines. But how about flipping an image upside down? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I've done this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sometimes I do this just kind of playing around. If I take a nice symmetrical shot, I think in this case, that looks pretty awesome.
Yes.
Pretty cool. So here is what I assume is the actual shot. I don't think this is photoshopped.
So here's the thing, though. You have Half Dome back there, and it's lit up just amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I didn't even notice that when it was upside down.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Because your eye just brushes right over it. Instead of it being a barrier like the other photograph, your eye just brushes right over Half Dome. It's kind of a nice Easter egg when it's upside down like that. Personally, I like it better right side up. It's either way, it's a totally cool picture. I love and I want to see a little more space above Half Dome.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Just a tad more.
Just a tad more. Which is something that's quite possible to do in Photoshop, especially with a sky that's just so easy and, you know, nothing fancy going on in the sky. Just make yourself a little bit more canvas and extend, just do content aware fill up there. It'll fill it in quite nicely.
Yeah.
You know, Kevin Walk says it's an interesting shot, which it just really is. I mean, it's not just where it was shot. It's not just the time of day and the light on Half Dome there, but just this person laying here. I'm assuming this is it's not a self-portrait, it's Hector Perez, but whoever this is, it's just, I don't know. It's like, again, the impact is right in the center of the frame, which is awesome. And then it makes just tweaking the details, just that. You're not trying to like polish something that isn't great or that's sort of mediocre. It's already got the impact. And I love these kind of shots. This is what we're going for usually, is like, you want to have that initial impact, and then it's just fine tuning it.
Yeah, and I think a quick little fix is this bit of blue in the top right corner is. I'm just gonna get that with a little little clone heal tool fix in Lightroom. Just to, well, now it did a little double. Watch out for that. But excuse me, it's good. I love, so attention to detail, just a separation between hand and face. So there's just a little bit of green there. Those are the kind of things that take a photo up a notch. And I think, Hector, you've done a really nice job here.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Another road, right side up this time. Let's see what it looks like upside down for a second. It's not, no, need the person if you're going to do that.
It's art.
Yeah. I just thought this was a nice image. And, you know, it's kind of a good take on the classic in the middle of the road shot. I love this low angle where the road just disappears just for a little bit and then reappears on that curve.
Yeah. And the other thing that I really like about this shot that John did is there's no sky showing. You know, I'm sure there's some breaks up there where it starts to peek through the trees and stuff. But when you take a shot like this, keeping that out or cropping it out, depending on how he processed it, is really key because it keeps the tones all kind of neutral. You don't have these bright elements poking in and stuff. I'm a little distracted on the far right lower portion. There's a couple leaves that, you know, I would, if it was my photograph, I'd probably clip that big one out.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, just because it's so much larger than the others. Plus, it's right in your face at the foreground. But this is a really, really pleasing shot. I mean, this is kind of one of those shots you could put up on your wall and get lost in it for a while. And also, it could be like your Facebook cover shot. You know, that really wide sort of format.
Yeah.
What's cool about this too is that you could have been walking around in this area kind of going, well, there's nothing to photograph. I mean, you know, it's just some trees and a road, but but you take advantage of the lines of the road, the kind of the contour of it, and the colors of the leaves. I mean, there are multiple elements that just make it work, and it's very simple. It's like it's one of those like no-brainer kind of like shots that's kind of awesome. So hats off. Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. All right, we're going to move on. I picked Jonathan's because one, I thought it was a very pretty photo. But two, again, I wanted your guys' opinion. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Steve, you and I sat down for our monthly image review, which is something that we do as part of PEN, where each month you could submit images to get reviewed by professional photographers. Very similar to what we're doing now, but at a higher, more detailed level. And you can actually win prizes as well. So if you want to learn more about that, photorec.tv/pen. But we had Lori's image a couple of weeks ago, and we both really liked it, but it had some branches in the sky that we thought would be better if we took them out. What are your thoughts on these branches up here?
Oh, for sure, because they're not anchored to anything. I mean, you don't even see, at least with Lori's, you had the trunk of the tree over on the far left side, so you knew where the branches belonged. That doesn't exist here, so I would definitely clip those out of there. And that sky is just unbelievable. The other thing I want that is just driving me crazy here, and it's, Jonathan, you're fine. You took a great shot, but I would do a transform on that building because it's leaned way over, and that's just, there's using some of the lens distortion to your advantage, like if it's ultra wide and you're really up close on something. And then there's times when it just makes a building look like it's about to fall over. And so we can fix that though.
Yeah, let's see if we can fix. I'm just curious to see how well Photoshop does. I'm just using the lasso tool, selecting that image, or sorry, edit, content aware fill.
It's a lot.
It is a bit. Maybe let's say okay. I see in the preview that it's going to do a decent job, except for a little patch up here. So it's thinking a moment. It's thinking another moment. There you go. Not bad, except for why did it decide? So in those cases, I'd probably just select this and just rerun it. Just to show you just that it is pretty easy. If I was being smarter, I would have taken the highlighting off in that subsequent box that pops up. And now maybe just get the J tool. And
you could even do a content aware fill there, but not go into the
or a patch tool or something.
Yeah. Let's do a little bit there like that. There you go.
Much stronger.
And then Toby, take it into camera raw for a second.
Filter, camera raw filter. Yeah.
Go up to the at the top. There you go. And we're getting some guided lines. Well, actually hit auto. Let's just see what Photoshop does here. Yeah, it straightened it out quite a bit, but I would still do the guided lines.
Okay, so these are here. And would you draw one on this corner?
I think I'd probably do the corner that's closest to the edge of the frame.
Okay.
Stand up vertical.
Oops, escape gets you out of that completely. All right, so let's bring it over here to this corner.
And then you can parallel that up with probably the other edge of the building all the way on the left side.
This one here.
That middle one fall where it may. And you might need to do some adjusting. There you go. That looks pretty good. You might, so the far right line, grab the bottom of it and just swing it slightly towards the left. There.
So then you can adjust. You can kind of find that sweet spot that is between a little bit of distortion without losing too much of the image versus a lot of distortion and having all of the image.
Yeah. And then you got to recrop and possibly fill in, you know.
Yeah. So
there's a tutorial on Pen about that for anybody that is Pen member.
That's right. Yeah. And so then you can come in here. You know, the Photoshop, I feel like the Photoshop crop tool recently got much better. It used to not work the way I expected in dragging it around, and now it does. So you could do that, and then you could content aware fill these two corners.
Yeah, and I'd probably still leave a little extra room.
A little bit more.
And the side there.
Yeah.
But the nice thing too is it straightened out the trees on the left side. You start to get some real distortion on the edge of the frame, but you're probably going to crop that out anyway.
Yeah. Krista says I make it look easy. It would have taken you an hour. It really, all I did, Krista, was select and say content aware fill 2 times, and then I tap the J key to get that little brush sampled, painted. That's it. You can do it.
The work that
in less than an hour.
The raw is identical to what you have with the transform panel in Lightroom. So if you're more comfortable with Lightroom, you don't use Photoshop, you can go to the guided transform in that panel of Lightroom and does the same thing.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on. We've got Pujan. I think I made an Indian name French, so sorry about that. I put a French accent on your Indian name, I assume. It's probably not Indian, and probably one of the other countries, and now I just look stupid, but that's okay. I am stupid. Right. I thought this image had some merit to it, but a couple of things I think will improve it. David Carr, what do you see when you look at it?
Well, I think there's probably too much sky for one. And because I think all of the really interesting stuff happens from about there down. Yeah. And you kind of play with that a little. You could come in from the left a little bit and lose that bush in the top left side. I mean, I usually would start with a little bit of the framing and the cropping, just sort of figuring out where is the frame that makes the most sense within this. And that looks better to me. And then I think I wouldn't want to over process this one, but I feel like there's a lot of, it's dark in the foreground, a lot of darkness, and it's cool to have some of that moodiness, but it might be a matter of local adjustments of painting in some spots. The grass towards the front left could be painted in a little brighter, or just pull up sliders like kind of like what you're doing there. But I just think you got to bring that foreground up a little. But there's not a whole lot. I mean, go around, make sure there's nothing like, is there a sign coming off a little fence there, or is that a? Yeah.
And so when you brighten it, I do see those now. Just so you know, that's exactly what you've said is exactly what I was thinking too. Just kind of a little bit less sky, because after these clouds disappear, there wasn't much going on, and then a little dark in the foreground.
Yeah, and then it's just a matter of cleaning up little bits and pieces here and there. I mean, that just little highlights that they were there, but they're not necessarily complementing the overall aesthetic of the image.
And now I'm just painting with a brush of just kind of green tint, just to kind of bring out some of the life in the bits of green that are in here as well, because I think that's a neat contrast in this spot. I don't know where this is. It seems like there's hot springs and some beautiful sharp mountains in the background. Really, really pretty.
Toby, can you flip this around?
No, Steve. You've used your allotment of flipped images.
I did a lot of talking on the last one. I was trying to keep my mouth shut, but I do want to.
All right, hang on just a sec. I want to just give the sky a little bit more life, a little bit more color. So again, there's now two graduated filters on here, one that comes down over the sky and one that comes up over the land. And you can, of course, then erase this off of some of that there, so it's not touching that as much. And now Steve wants it flipped. Right click, transform, flip horizontal. Ooh.
I like that with the leading line of the water.
That's so nice. What the reason you were thinking that, Steve, is you love that the water's coming out of that left corner? Is that what?
Yeah. Now, again, same as the other one. If this is a famous spot and somebody's going to notice that, hey, if you're standing there, the mountain doesn't look like that in the background, then you can't get away with it. But just for composition purposes, and also the sky looks really purple now.
Did I do too much up there?
Yeah, I think I'd take the tint down. The blue is kind of fine.
Okay.
But,
I like that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, Steve, I know we always do that disclaimer. If it's a famous spot, don't flip it. But man, if people can saturate the crap out of something so that it never looked like that in reality, I think you can flip it whenever you want to.
Yeah.
You do have to watch out for like writing and things of that sort. But
other offenses out there other than an image around.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for submitting that. Now we got Roberta. Or let's put a French spin on that. Roberta. Wait, was that French? Oh, God, I don't know.
I don't know how you would say Roberta with a French accent.
Where were we? We were on some trip, and David McKay managed to put a Jamaican accent on somebody. I think we were in like Vietnam or something like that.
That's funny.
Jamaica.
Hey man, can't wait to be in Vietnam again.
I'm laughing, making fun of him, but as you clearly see, I'm terrible with accents too. I come home and I try to do. We had Angela on this most recent Southwest workshop with a great Russian accent, and so I come home and try to mimic some of the hilarious things that she was saying, and just then that comes out of my mouth, and I'm like, that wasn't even close to Russian. What was that? Oh, boy.
She was quite hilarious.
She was. It's
One
good
of a
entertainment.
kind.
Yep. All right. Roberta's got this kind of cool, very simple architectural shot. I think we got some kind of statue monument in front of a big building. Steve, what are you thinking about all the lean in here?
You know what? I think this is fine. I don't think there's any, to be honest with you. So here's what I'm looking at when I see a shot like this, being the architecture photographer that I am. Bottom left corner, you have the nice leading line of the sculpture right there. Top right corner, you've got the dashes up there that lead right to that corner. Bottom right corner looks rather intentional. There's not some intersection that's happening right at the corner. And then the top left is, everything is just looks intentional, but you don't notice that unless that's what you're looking for. And because of that, it's just naturally pleasing to the eye to look at. I think this could work really nice as a black and white.
Definitely.
It's so pale, and the processing of it was done so well that the color doesn't really detract from it. I think it's a great image, and I think Roberta did a great job. There's really not much. Yeah, if you do a black and white, you definitely have to make it more contrasty to give it the depth and stuff like that. But I like it as color. I think she did just an outstanding job, and there's really nothing that I have to say to change it.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it's just geometry laid out really well. And I see sculptures that, like, people will photograph a sculpture or something like this, and I can get cynical in certain situations where it feels like someone just took a picture of someone else's art. But in this case, you've got this building in the background that's working really well with this sculpture, and sculpture, whatever this thing is. It's really cool because it's just, when you look around, like, you could only see it this way from one angle, and you move a foot over one way or the other, and it's different. But there's, like you said, Steve, there's an intentionality to it. It feels like to me that is, it just works really well.
Yep.
One element that may have been intentional, it looks so point on that it probably was, but I would probably offer, if you were to take the shot again, to consider staying away from it. The point of the sculpture intersects with the vertical line right there. And it's not a major thing, but once you notice it, you can't stop looking at it. And so I would just move just a couple inches to the right to separate those two lines a little bit. And then I would take it into Photoshop and I'd just clean up that leading line in the lower left where the sculpture is. There's just some stuff down there. I just want that line to be straight. I just kind of clip that stuff out of there. But this is right up my alley. I love this kind of thing.
Yeah. I love that you use that word intentionality and intentional. I think that's what we talk about and try to coach a lot when we're out on the workshops. I agree. This to me is very similar to going back here where Hector was thoughtful and has this little bit of separation. I would like to see just a teeny bit of separation. Otherwise, great comments. All right, a simple, clean portrait. David Carr, I wanted some opinions from you on this, as you often are taking some nice portraits.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Man, it's just like at first blink, I'm just trying to think. I mean, the most nitpicky thing, I feel like this girl's right knee meets right up with the edge of the frame in a way that it maybe it's. I don't know if there's more there to like bring back if this is the actual photo that was in the camera or what. But I mean, that's a very nitpicky thing. I don't think it's a deal breaker. With portraiture, we're really bringing people to the eyes more than anything. It's not architectural in the sense that you don't. I feel like there's some rules you can break a little more easily. You can get away with breaking. But it's just one of those, like, in the future, like maybe it back up a little bit just so you have some room to play with. Or if the actual raw file is a little larger, just bring that back a little. I feel like, I mean, what her hands are doing works really well. That's a big problem in portraiture. A lot of times people do weird things with their hands, or
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with my hand. What do I? But I'll just see someone's hand like with their fingers apart or something, and it just, I don't know. It's laid out well. And I don't know.
Let me ask you that. So when you were shooting portraits, as you often do these days, are you just kind of mentally running through a checklist as somebody poses up to watch for that, or is that what you do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of times I try to get them to just be themselves, like sit the way you would sit, and then give me a little bit of gesture and movement. But if I see something that's out of place, I'll tell them, hey, you know what, you might want to bring your fingers together a little bit more, or move your hand over to your knee. It looks better. It just looks more. It has more of like a I don't know what the word is, but it just looks more pleasing to the eye.
Gotcha.
Also, the way she's tilting her head is really nice. There's kind of this mystery of like, what's she thinking? She's kind of looking at the camera. I mean, it's very much like some sort of a model type pose. But I feel like what this model is doing is totally fine. The lighting is good. I mean, it's very evenly lit. There's not like a full-on Rembrandt lighting thing going on where there's a lot of shadow on one side of the face, and that's just a style thing. I mean, some people would like to see more shadow. One thing that I think that they did well though is, and I mess this up sometimes, is that people's neck will be dark, or I just don't have enough light, coming from the like towards the center of the person, and it's weird. Once you start to notice that, it can be a problem. And so in this case, that's not happening. So I don't know. I feel like it's a great shot.
Yeah, I thought it was quite nice too. Yeah, I get the knee and also the shoelace is right.
Oh yeah, that's right. I couldn't tell on my screen, but you're right.
Yeah. But minor things. Steve,
just a couple considerations. Number one, there's a lot of really kind of yellowy, warmer tones in the top half of the picture with the hair and the skin tones and the shirt stuff. And then all of a sudden you got the cool blues in the jeans. So I think if you were to leave it like this, full body photograph, I'd love to see it as a black and white, and then kind of reprocess it as a black and white. Because I'm finding that all those differences in tones and colors and stuff, even though they're pretty neutral, there's slight enough variations that it's really taking away from me.
That's
just
a good point
on what's going on. The other consideration, if you want to keep it color, or you can do a black and white, is I'd like to crop out the pants altogether and just see her get closer, because if the whole windows are the eyes to the soul thing, when we look at a photograph, we're automatically drawn, a headshot, we're automatically drawn to the eyes. You really have to hunt from where it's taken here. Not only is it far away, but you have a lot of hair that's kind of hanging down in front of the eyes. And I think if you come in a little tighter and be able to see those eyes more, it could, take it to a whole different place as well. You work with putting her in a third somehow. But yeah. I actually like what you did there, Toby. You kind of had more of a horizontal, and then
when I left it here, the arms look funny to me.
Yeah, they're very long at that point.
Yeah. So
I've been shooting a lot more of my portraits lately, wide, landscape mode, and
really?
And I mean, because a lot of times it's a headshot, and they really don't want to be seen from the waist down at all, anyway. And I'm really trying to get their eyes and that their face. That's what the headshot really is. But in this case, it may just be an artistic thing of like, hey, it'd be cool if you're sitting on the floor, just and we just do a full body shot that way. But it's good to have that variety for sure. Yeah,
I think that looks really cool. Kind of zoomed. It's more of a neutral tone now. You don't have the blue. Stuff like that. It changed the story for sure, but it gives you some options on where to go. Plus now you can easily read the shirt, and you really get to see the eyes.
Yeah, I do. Much more connection. I think it is thoughtful in that we do have a nice clean view of the eye there. This one's a little obscure with hair, but because we have good connection there, and it's much more about the eyes, I think, which are quite nice when you crop in. Cool. All right, last picture that I picked for no other reason than it's a basket full of puppies. I mean, what better picture to end our talk of pictures about than a basket full of puppies from Wanda?
How do you improve a basket full of puppies picture?
Another puppy? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
Their little pink and black noses are just so cute.
Yeah, pretty cute there. I saw an article today that said nation's dogs are, they put an expletive in there, I'll leave it out, but are loving whatever the heck's going on right now. Because dogs everywhere are like, wait, you guys are home all the time now? This is amazing.
Ollie's really enjoying this, man. She's loving it.
Yeah. Alana is pretty dang happy with a constant lap around as well. Yeah. I just brightened it a bit because I feel like these puppies are white, and so they felt as it came in just a little bit, less than white. And so I just brightened it, and maybe you could even cool it a tiny bit as well, just a bit.
And then a little tighter. Huh?
Yeah, I did. I cropped in a little bit tighter as well. I felt like the fact, so that word you used a few minutes ago, intentionality, it seems like the fact that we have just a bit of the ivy backdrop being cropped off wasn't as intentional. So I'm just cropping in so that it feels like, yes, this is where I wanted to frame this image. And Wanda, sorry, in doing that, we cropped a little bit of your, whatever you call that thing in the bottom right corner.
Watermark.
Watermark. Thank you. Watermark off that. But again, just as an example, not because I'm trying to steal your basket full of puppies picture. All right. Hey, if you send a picture in, thank you. Keep an eye out on this channel, or if you're a Penn member, of course, in the Penn video list, because I will be back with more to cover the rest of those. I appreciate you putting your work out there in front of us. And I hope everybody who submitted found something useful as part of this. And just a great group of images, not only the ones we covered, but the other ones that were submitted as well. So thank you all. Thank you for doing that. All right, from the Brady Bunch view to back to the normal view. Also, just a reminder, I saw one question go by a little bit earlier. If you have a question, put it in the chat. Roy is in there. Roy, thank you for being there with us. He is gathering those, and we'll be answering them at the end of the show that we're going to start to wrap up after a few news stories and a little bit more. Okay, first news story. So other sad news that happened recently was Kenny Rogers has passed away.
Oh, I know. Hey, I was going to say this at the show's intro when we were talking about David Carr making the transition from music to photography. He's the next Kenny Rogers.
Oh, am I? I don't know. I don't know when to hold him or fold him though.
Dude, you got to open up a fried chicken place down there.
Oh, maybe I'll do that. Yeah.
Camera.
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, it's the South. How do we know how many fried chicken places he had? Has anybody been to
well,
one?
he had Kenny Rogers Roasters for a long time, and it was really good. It was like Boston Market before Boston Market was Boston Market.
It was even on Seinfeld. It was so good.
What'd you say?
It was on a Seinfeld episode.
Oh, that's right. It was. Yeah, it was.
They installed one right outside Kramer's window, and he was going crazy.
I forgot about that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in his passing, of course, they were playing lots of songs, but other news articles. One caught my eye. I think I had heard this a while back. Kenny Rogers, he was actually quite an accomplished photographer as well. So I thought it'd be fun to take a moment, and we can't play any of his music because then I'd get copyright strikes against me here on YouTube. But we can certainly show some of his work. And it sounds like over the years he has used a variety of cameras. He started far enough back that he was using film cameras in the day, and when he toured, there's a time to travel around in between shows and capture some of the kind of the stuff that he saw. David Carr, you have some. Did you do any photography while you toured?
Yeah, that's how I got started. I wanted some sort of a hobby to do on the road, just something to learn and pour myself into that wasn't music, that was sort of a distraction from that. And so I would just walk around cities and take pictures of whatever I could find, and then put them in Lightroom and turn the clarity all the way up. That's how I got started.
That's where we all started, pretty much. Yeah.
Saturate the heck out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like that you said clarity and not saturation. So, that's okay. That's all right. So he's just got some great black and white photos here, just a couple that we're going to look at.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the neatest pictures I've seen of the Lincoln Memorial. I love corner little, somebody playing the guitar, the spacing here and the crispness of this. Just
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, a really cool photo. And then, working with other artists, Ray Charles.
That's awesome.
Very good. And the kind of dragging the shutter here too is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was an amazing photographer. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's so cool when you meet people or when you hear about people who you've only known them for one thing, and then you find out they've got this whole other talent that they're really good at. Bryan Adams, like the '80s pop rock singer, also a fantastic photographer.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. And now we're going to move on to this. I like this story because I can call it the Tiff versus PSD Tiff. Get it? Tiff.
Yeah.
Tiff. So Scott Kelby posted last week. He posts Lightroom killer tips. Am I sharing the right screen now? No, I'm not, am I? I got to close that and do this.
I'm glad he posted this because I've always kind of wondered about TIFFs. I came into the digital photography world kind of late. I wasn't in the graphic design kind of stuff. So I kind of have been wondering what is the place of a TIFF? It just seems like it's outdated now, and he kind of confirms that.
He does, but when you get down into the comments, it's clear that not everybody is as fully on board with it as he is. And I think he may have added this asterisk after the fact. I'm not sure, actually. But he says he doesn't really use TIFFs anymore at all. And for the short story for everybody watching, TIFF is a file format that is lossless. No data is thrown out. PSD is a format for Photoshop, and Lightroom can read it as well, although Lightroom can read TIFFs as well. That is also lossless and doesn't throw information out. And his point basically is PSD. Why use TIFFs? They're gigantic and they have no real advantage over PSD. Except people in the chat. Let's go, or the comments.
Yeah, I didn't see the comments. I saw that one of the asterisks was if you had a file that was a couple gigabytes big.
Yeah. Which I even think Photoshop has a file format now that will support that larger, right? It was just the other day that I was reminded about that. It's like a PSB file, I think.
I've seen that come through the show a couple of times.
Yeah. But what a lot of people are quick to point out, and just to give you an idea, he's got 50 comments on here. Most of his Lightroom killer tips have like 2 or 3 comments of like, hey, great tip. Thanks so much for that. Always appreciate all of your education. And, of course, Scott Kelby is a fantastic photographer and educator. But it really feels like he stepped in this time because, well, for one, PSD is a proprietary format that belongs to Photoshop and Adobe. And if you are not completely in that world, or there's a chance that you might be out of it at some point in the future, which we'll talk about in another story in a minute, then you're really limiting yourself possibly in the fact that in the future, maybe those PSDs won't be able to be opened by you. Or you're working with somebody who isn't in that and sending files across. So the fact that he is saying you should use this proprietary format over a widely accepted universal format really has rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't feel as strongly about it. I mean, you should be, and this is one of the things I've talked a little bit about on the show. I'm working this year with the goal of not being so reliant on the catalog in Lightroom, because David Carr, you and I did a show back in November, back before the dawn of 2020, and we were talking about the last decade of photos. And
that's right.
I realized that I have photos from 2012 and 2013 that are in these other catalogs that have gone corrupted, or I lost part of the catalog, or not part of it. And so by being so reliant on the catalog I didn't lose any of the pictures, but I've lost the editing and I've lost how I rank them. I really don't want to rely solely on Lightroom for that. And so for the same reason of this PSD versus TIFF, I don't solely want to rely on Adobe's tools to make sure I can always open my very best and favorite images in the future. So that's
a valid point.
Yeah.
It's valid.
Also, CMYK is supported only by TIFF. So pure whites for proof digital printings, that apparently is an issue too. I've never really run into that. So you know, there's definitely some reasons to still use Tiff, but I will say for my edits that come back into Lightroom, I will probably still do PSD because they are smaller, and I will always finish a nice JPEG out and a DNG, which is that non-proprietary format.
Well, and
So.
I'm sure I speak for a lot of the people in the chat and for a lot of other photographers who, like, I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, and there's a lot I do know, but there's a lot I don't know. And this is one of those areas where I am not very well schooled in file formats. And so I've just always defaulted to whatever Lightroom or Photoshop, what it defaults to. So for the longest time, I was just doing TIFFs, but I remember you talking about that at one point, Toby, just that you prefer to go to PSD. So I started doing that. I would imagine most people are like, whatever, but it's not that it doesn't matter. It does matter, but it's funny. Some of these topics get so heated amongst people who really know a lot about it. And, you know, I don't want anybody to like put so much of their focus on trying to learn this stuff ahead of learning just how to take great photos, how to edit them. But it's, again, it warrants discussion. You do need to know where your photos are ending up, because like you said, you don't want to be 8 years from now trying to find the image or the edits on the image and it's gone. So
yeah. Kate makes a good comment. I haven't used this nice feature yet. She's a Tiff girl. She's working in Lightroom, Photoshop, and Topaz and Luminar. So PSD isn't working back and forth between those.
Okay.
Yeah, it works in Luminar.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I use it in.
Oh, I'm sorry. So PSD does PSD work in Luminar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Cool.
Interesting. I do know. How about Nick? Nick, will it work with PSDs, or do they need to be TIFF?
Yeah. As far as I know, I mean, I all my work on PSDs in Photoshop. I go to Nick. I go to Luminar straight from there. I go from Lightroom to Luminar, and then it asks me, and I make sure that it's PSD and not TIFF.
Okay.
But I'm not. Yeah, because I use Nick through. Nick. I'm wondering if you have to designate it, because the default is TIFF, and even in Photoshop and Lightroom, oddly enough, at least it used to be that when you take it into Photoshop and bring it back, the default was TIFF. Always
was, yeah.
Which I always thought that was kind of weird because you're Adobe products, but I'm a PSD guy. Just Kyle, he's done years of work in graphic design, and they're literally printing billboards and stuff. And he says even on the print design side of things, he's rarely ever used TIFF files in the last 20 years.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they don't have a place. They certainly do, but and I think Kelby probably went a little. Obviously, he ruffled some feathers, went a little, but that happens anytime you go to.
Well, and that's kind of his style with a lot of things. I mean, I've been to several of his conferences, and
very direct.
And I appreciate it because, and this is kind of what I was getting at earlier. Is I feel like for I'll say the average photographer, the ones who they're not trying to make a career out of it. They care and they want to take great photos, but for the average photographer, I just wish there was like a primer on how to, like, these are the things that really matter. Just do these things and don't worry about all these other little side tracks. And I think sometimes that's what Kelby is doing. He's speaking to that mass audience of like, look, don't worry about that. Just do this. Just you don't need to use TIFFs, which is not totally true for everybody. But I think for the masses, for his audience, it's probably 98% of them are never going to have an issue. I could be wrong, but it just that tends to be how he speaks.
Well, he is hawking platypod, so you got to take it with a grain of salt.
What'd you say?
Platy-ball, right?
Oh, that's right, the platy-ball.
Yeah. Take it and make it even worse. But he'll be the first to tell you it's a bad name. In fact, I hung out with him a little bit at Imaging USA.
That's right. Yeah, we ran into him
or something, and super, super nice guy. Really nice guy. It's one of the first things he said. I kind of talked to him about the platypod. He goes, terrible name, but it is a good product.
Cool. All right. But speaking of getting away from Photoshop, first off, did you either of you guys try? Adobe is offering 2 months for free. You basically go pretend like you're about to cancel your Creative Cloud suite if you signed up for that. And just towards the end of that cancellation process, before you actually click cancel, it says, hey, what about 2 months free? And you can say, okay, either of you guys do that?
I have not. I'm afraid I'm going to actually cancel it, but maybe I'll have to go back and.
I thought before I did the show, well, let me go actually try and see how it
Yeah.
works for me. And it shows you what you currently pay. I'm grandfathered into a pretty nice plan from when I was an educational person, and I haven't corrected that because I'm still in education. Sure. And I was worried about losing that price for the entire suite, but it shows you what it'll be before, shows you after, and says, how about we just give you the next 2 months for free and you'll save this amount of money. And it was very easy to do. I don't feel like I'm taking money out of Adobe's pocket. You know, this isn't like I'm going down to the local restaurant saying, give me free food right now because you guys are really hard up. So I felt okay with it. And so go give it a shot.
Definitely.
I would suggest. And then the last thing is not to be outdone, but Affinity Photo, which is a strong alternative to Photoshop, is offering 3 months software trials of their Photoshop-like program called Affinity Photo.
That's cool.
And I just installed it yesterday or day before. And I have to say, it looks pretty nice. And I think they're offering a purchase price of about $50 for the software itself. So even if you keep it 90 days and you're like, yeah, this is working for me, $50. It does have healing and cloning tools. It is a little bit more photocentric than Photoshop is. Where Photoshop has all of these incredible photography tools, but then it's got the 3D stuff and the graphic design, and even video editing. I feel like that interface can be a little daunting and overly complex, and Affinity Photo is pretty nice. So I'd suggest giving that a try. There are links to how to get the deal with Photoshop and 2 months off.
That's
and
awesome.
Also how to get Affinity Photo for 3 months down in the show notes. Yeah,
that's great.
That's awesome.
Hey, I will say I downloaded the free trial of Topaz, the sharpening tool.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
So yeah, because I posted a couple pictures of some birds I took in my backyard yesterday on Instagram. I posted them, but that was with a D850 and a 300 millimeter lens, actually a 500 millimeter lens with a teleconverter. But I still had to crop the heck out of them because they were small birds, and I was like, well, I'm cropping them way down. I want to see what happens if I can really sharpen this. And I've been hearing about the Topaz thing, downloaded it, and I was pretty amazed at how good of a job it did. It's kind of like this AI software, and it's a little murky around the edges. Like it's not like it doesn't look like you shot it really sharp with like a big lens, but it presents itself really well, way better than just the actual photo and me trying to sharpen it in Lightroom. So
interesting.
Yeah, I just thought I would
great trends. Yeah, there was a couple of months ago I did a review of the 200 to 600 and reached out to my friend Ryan Mency. He writes for F-Stoppers. I know he's been using it pretty consistently for the last couple of months on bird photos mostly, and he's been very happy with it.
Yeah, man.
I keep meaning to check it out.
It was pretty impressive. It was definitely more. It wasn't just a sharpening slider. It was doing something else.
Yeah, cool. I think that's all of our news. I feel like there's one other thing. Well, if you're a Pen member, you've gotten an email almost every day this week reminding you that tomorrow David, Allie, and I will be sitting down. If you're not a Pen member, we're going to be sharing that free out with the whole world just after we record it live. So stay tuned for that. And let's get into a couple of questions. And I think this first one, Rahul wants to know, can you tell me more about wildlife photography? Is it possible to do without owning a costly lens?
Oh, that was a guy from India, right?
Yeah. Did I made the French name? No.
No, I saw a question come through.
Oh, yeah.
It said hello from India or something like that.
Oh, cool.
All over.
Yeah. So, I mean, the simple answer is yes. There's certain wildlife that is available to you without owning a very costly lens. What a very costly lens allows you to do, though, is be further away from shyer animals and also get, a slightly more epic shots, I think is a simple way to say that. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about, a polar bear, you need a long lens because you don't want to get very close to a polar bear. you just don't. They'll eat you, and that's not good. It's not good to be eaten.
Eat your face off.
They'll eat your face off. Yeah.
And then like all that money you spend on your lens is just down the drain because you're dead.
Right. I mean, so Canon makes like a 55 to 250 kit lens that is quite sharp, but 250 even on a crop sensor where you get it up, that's getting close to 400. I don't do good math. That's getting close, but you're still going to need to crop some. And you're relying on the light being good, and your background not being too distracting because you're up at an aperture that's not going to blur the background quite as much. So while it is certainly possible, it is more difficult. Yeah.
Can I speak into that real quick? Because I've been wanting to really nail the wildlife shots really well, and I've got some I'm very proud of where I was able to be closer to an animal, but more often than not, I mean, if I go back and look at through my metadata, like I would be at 500 millimeters more than with I had a 200 to 500 Nikon. I was at 500 way more than I was at any other focal range within that lens, and always wanting more, and it's like, if you're going to try to get an 800 millimeter lens, I mean, you're going to have to, work 4 jobs to pay for it. They're so expensive. It's a dilemma that I'm facing right now because I really want to do the wildlife thing better, but I'm at the limitations of the gear that I have. And, so I've even been looking for old lenses that were just long lenses, like an old Nikon lens that would be 15 years old, but like a 600 millimeter, to see, are there any of those out there that'll just get me within that range? And they're still expensive. So there are ways to do it. We've all seen great shots that we're taking with the Sigma 150 to 600 or the Tamron 150 to 600, the Nikon 200 to 500. I know Sony has a 100 to 400, right? And Canon does as well. They're all great. They can do great things, but really you're going to have to get as close as you can. And sometimes you can't. You just have to. So it's a dilemma, like spending money, carrying a bunch of weight around, or just not getting those epic National Geographic shots. I don't know.
I think it kind of depends on your definition of wildlife.
True.
I mean, my dog acts wild all the time. I could just shoot that with my iPhone. But Tanya brings up a great point here. She says, go macro and chase tiny wildlife. And that's
a great idea.
That's a really good way to look at it. Macro lens doesn't have to cost you a whole lot of money, and you can look for the small, intricate details. It's a lot of fun to do. But if you're talking about wildlife now, you generally picture it like out on a plain of the Serengeti or something like that. That's really where renting equipment has to kind of come in, because you're going to do that so infrequently to see, true wildlife in its natural habitat, that you might as well just spend a little bit of money and rent. It's like you, Carr. I know I always call him Carr because we have 2 Davids, but I'm next time I go to Tanzania, I'm just planning on renting, because I have a 100 to 400. It's a great lens. I love it and everything. But every time I'm out there, I want to get in tighter. I want to get in, 600-800 range if I can. And so my plan is to, that trip is pretty far in the future. I'm going to save some money up, and I'm going to rent a big lens to take out there. So, you don't have to buy the equipment. It's not cheap to rent it, but it's a lot cheaper than trying to buy it for something.
Absolutely.
That often.
Nice. All right. Carrie just got the 1.4 extenders. This is kind of related to use with her 5D Mark IV and 100 to 400. She's never used an extender before. Anything to know about using it?
She got the right one, first of all. I assume that's version 3, I think, that they're on is the latest. So the 1.4 is 100 times better than the 2X. So the 1.4 version, or whatever the latest one is, that's the best extender that they've come out with. I'm not a big fan of extenders. They mess with your aperture, and I've just never really had any great luck with them. But if you're going to get an extender, that's definitely the one to get. I mean, that's all I can really say about that. The thing with extenders is you really have to watch your shutter speed, because now, you've taken it from, say, 5.6 at 100 millimeters to f8. And then on the long end, which, as Carr was mentioning, a lot of times you're just all the way out there. You go what is it on that lens? Is it 6.3 or 7.1? You take it up to like f11 or something.
6.3, yeah. Well, the 1.4 should make it f8, right? 6.3.
Well, maybe that's it.
1.4. Yeah, it's gonna bump it up a little bit. And you're gonna take a minor hit on focusing speed, and of course that loss of flight as well. But I do think when you have, if it's the version 3, it's quite good, and the impact shouldn't be drastic.
Well, I was commenting earlier because Krista was in Tanzania with us, and I had advised her to pick up the 300 millimeter f4 lens that I use and a 1.7 teleconverter. Nikon makes a 1.7, and I had tested that out at home, and it was great. I mean, it looked wonderful. I felt like the photos were perfect. And then when we went to Tanzania, they're good. They're not great. Whenever I used that combination, and I think Krista kind of agrees that it was definitely better than not getting the shot, but the beauty of that lens kind of was diminished quite a bit by that teleconverter. It's a catch-22. I mean, it's the dilemma. I was talking about this on the last tour we just did. It's the dilemma of photographers. It's like, we don't want to carry too much gear, but we also don't want to not have the stuff we need when we need it. Yeah. We don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on one lens, but we also don't want to not get the shot. And it's, there's always a toss up, you know?
Yeah. And it's tough. Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say certain brands just have, better stuff than others. So I've never had good luck with an extender. I've so much so I would rather just shoot at 400 millimeters and then crop in.
Yeah.
That to be sharper than using the extender. But Toby, on the other hand, he'd be right next to me with an extender on his Sony G lens and the Sony camera body, and his shots are super crisp. So, yeah. And Toby, you and I have tried them on third-party lenses and stuff before, which I always think is a really bad idea because you have a little lower quality glass, not to put any third parties down, but then you put an extender on there. It's just
you're pushing it to the limits of what it was. Yeah,
it's a good point.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe the key is like spend your money on a higher resolution camera and just plan to crop versus trying to spend thousands of dollars on a really nice prime telephoto lens that you're only going to use here and there. I mean, unless you're like a birder that like seriously does that. I mean, there are people that they do it as a hobby, but they do it so much that they've justified spending 10 grand on a 600 millimeter f4 lens.
Yeah. Tanya wants to know, back when we talked about, I think it's this image. Now I have to share my screen. This is a complicated answer. Tanya says, in that image where we cropped out a bunch of the sky, give me a second here to share.
Oh, the one that we ended up flipping around with the...
Yeah. Do we not feel that when it was, so as it came in originally, transform, flip horizontal, that the water leads back into the image when it's coming out of the right corner or going out of the right corner versus what you suggested of here?
Well, it's a point well taken. And one of the things that I was considering before asking Toby to flip it around was the water, not so much, but I was looking at the direction of the grass, the way it's kind of blowing. And so in the original image right here, you can see that it's blowing left to right, and the water does lead you out. So it does work fine. I wanted to see it flip because I like leading lines in that lower left corner. And I don't know, I'm a little impartial on this one. A lot of times instantly I'm like, oh, that's way better. This looks actually pretty cool to splice this thing together.
I know. I was thinking that cool too. So that's the original on the left, and then after we flipped it on the right. I think it can go either way. I don't have a super strong opinion here either, Tanya. And
that grass is leaning left to right as you're entering the image visually.
Yeah,
it's still pleasing.
Yeah.
If that grass wasn't there and it was just rocks or something like that, it would be stronger flipping it around.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. And then we had Carol says, I get the emails. Does that mean I'm a pen member and don't realize it? Well, Carol, it might. If you're talking about getting these recent emails from David about this upcoming webinar, that does mean that you are a member. If you don't know how to log in, send us an email, hello@photoenthusiastnetwork.com. We'll get you all that details, information. The new system that we switched to, a while ago now, just makes all of that back end so much easier. So we'll definitely get you straightened out if you're not already. And if you're watching this and you're thinking about joining Penn, the Groupon deal is still live. It is a ridiculously cheap deal to access all of this content, plus professional photographers regularly in the community helping you become a better photographer. You can learn more at photorec.tv/Penn. Last question. David Watts wants to know, is there any online backup systems that we use? David Carr, Steve Scurich, do you guys back up online? And if so, what system do you use?
Mine's just a mess. It's kind of pieced together with a few different cloud backups, but Backblaze, as far as I've heard, is the best way to go. I know, Toby, you like that. Brian Scanlon uses Backblaze, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I use.
Yeah.
It's just easy. You pointed at a folder or a drive, and it just takes that content online. I've been very happy with the speed. Some online services, they really throttle to keep their costs a little bit lower. But Backblaze doesn't seem to do that. I've been happy with the speed of upload and the ease of it. The only thing you have to watch out for is it only backs up drives that it can see and are connected to. So if you fill a hard drive and then file that away in your system, it is going to delete that data after a period of time that it's taken to the cloud. So that is something to watch for.
I just got a warning today that I guess one of my drives, I had unplugged it to plug another one in like 14 days ago. And it said 14 days ago, this drive went missing. It's going to disappear. It's basically going to be deleted from backup in, 2 weeks or whatever, like by the end of the month. So
2 weeks, 30 days.
Slap on the wrist.
Well, Backblaze does your externals, right? As long as they're
as long as it's plugged in. Yep. It's unlimited for like $6 a month, or I think.
The catch for me has been that I'm with Comcast Xfinity, and they charge more above a certain amount of data every month, and it's a lot more. And my last few bills have been really high because I've been backing this thing up. So it's like, that's the cost of backup. It's the $6 a month. But I mean, otherwise it would have taken, it has taken months and months and months to get everything backed up, but that's because I have all these drives plugged in. So it's still worth it.
Yeah, that's good. I did hear that because of, everybody working from home, I think Comcast is suspending those data caps for a period of time. So if you're trying to get a bunch backed up, maybe let it rip right now.
Do it. Yeah.
Take advantage of that.
Full speed.
Yeah. Yeah. The few good things that are coming out of all of this mess, take advantage of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I think we're done. That's it. All over. Thanks, everybody. David Carr, Steve Scurich, thanks so much for joining me. I think we'll be back next week, hopefully with you guys.
Definitely.
Chat room, thanks for hanging out. If you haven't already, give this a thumbs up, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We really appreciate that. And if you're watching and you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click that subscribe button too. It really helps me out. Thank you. Thank you, Roy, for collecting notes and putting those all together, the questions. And till next time.
Stay safe, everyone.
Take care.
Stay safe.